Hello and welcome to my review of the Acastus Knight Asterius for Warhammer the Horus Heresy from Games Workshop. One of these knights will cost you £400. I did unbox it almost 3 years ago now, and back then it cost 347, so yes, it has gone up by about 50 quid in 3 years. It is an expert kit, consists of 153 resin components. It's the Forge World resin, highly detailed, great quality. If you've seen my unboxing, you'll see that the top of the box had a load of soot on. I don't know why, maybe because they hardly sell any of these. To be fair, it is quite a niche product. I don't think many people collect Mechanicum in Horus Heresy. I've got a feeling that that will change over the next couple of months. I highly doubt that we'll get this model in plastic. We haven't got the Porphyrion or anything of that size in plastic. Yes, we've got the Serastus Knights now in plastic, and probably we'll get the Trapos, but this is an absolute monster of a kit. I own one Acastus because you can only take one in sort of like a knight army, and I own 2 Knight Porphyrions. So yeah, that is, you know, £1,200 worth of big knights. I'll go through some size comparisons and things later on in the video. You know, I'll compare it to a Warhound Titan Reaver, as well as a load of other knights and smaller knights too. So the format of this review is as usual. I'll have a look at the miniature. When do miniatures stop becoming miniatures? I'll probably say at the knight level. Then I'll go through how easy it was to build, issues I had, things like that. I'll gush over the awesome pose I've put it on. I'll gush over the awesome pose I've given it. There aren't any spare parts, so I'll go straight into the size comparisons, and then at the end I'll go through all of the rules found in your Horus Heresy Mechanicum book, or the Forces of the Omnissiah, as it's officially known. So this model at the moment, it's kind of held together with white tack and things. It's such a buckaroo model in terms of, I think, just looking at it, I've got about 29 pieces right now that are held on by white tack, and that's mainly to, you know, for this review really. I'll try to move the model around without things falling off, but if they do, they do. So you've got these big heavy conversion beamer weapons, absolutely huge. I've got this one lowered, this one firing, and it sort of walking forward, and it's turning as it's walking forward as well. You've got these armor plates, which I will take one off, as you can see. They're all white tacked, and I would suggest you do that. So it's just ease of you know, spraying that skeleton, the metal skeleton underneath, and working on it. These Volkite culverins, yes, it's sort of defensive weapons of Volkite culverins. They will need to be sort of glued in one place. At the moment they're just lowered and they can move, I say move freely. They will be attached by this cabling. If I can take a shoulder pauldron off without it disintegrating. Yep, just about. There's a lot of white tack there. But yeah, they're connected there, and they're also connected to this top carapace armor panel itself. So that's unlike the other knights where it's connected to the chassis. It's actually connected to this. So, you know, there goes your, unless you magnetize the top of the weapon, you're going to have to glue it to the carapace, which means you're not going to be able to take the carapace off. You could magnetize the weapon arms for some reason, but I doubt they're going to bring out another version of this with sonic disruptors or anything like that. So, you know, I think you're good to go if you just wanted to glue it in place. Speaking of the weapons, obviously these are the heavy conversion beamers. Games Workshop have also brought out some heavy conversion beamer weapons for Titans, including the Warlord Titan. I was thinking that these weapons were, you know, primarily sort of earmarked just for Mechanicum, but no, obviously because they're forge wells and things, you can put them on anything, so that really opened it up. And also we get the conversion beamers on the little Moiraxes as well, and even on some Space Marine tanks, so yeah, why not have them on Titans too. Moving around the model, I'll just put this carapace shoulder pauldron back on. We have the, if I just lower it down a little bit, then we can have a look at its sort of rear. This is all sort of out of place because that's held on by white tack, I must say. But if I were to remove this armor paneling, you'd see the power core. I think it's got like one of the largest power cores you can have before you start getting onto like reactors for Titans, like, you know, obviously with the Warhound Titan and things. You've got the exhausts at the top, which are a little bit underwhelming, I'd say, compared to other exhausts. You do have some bars across them, and they've got slits on them, but they don't go deep or far. So yeah, just be wary of that. Yeah, you've got the other heavy conversion beamer, and then the top carapace is actually, I'll talk about the head in a moment, is sort of harbouring a weapon. This is going to be a bit tricky for me to remove, but yeah, right here, look, you've got the Carachnus mortar, which I think is the same sort of mortar on the Carachnus tank. 60-inch range. I think it's only strength 6 and AP 4. I'll go through rules later, but it is horrific. Like, it's crawling fire, radphage, all of these kind of horrible things. It's proper radioactive sort of mortar launcher. Of course, I've left mine unglued and white tacked, as you just saw, so I will be you know, painting this separately, and I'll probably be gluing it in place like that, just to give it a bit more, yeah, active. I don't know whether they glued theirs in place open, but I'll definitely have mine open, much like the Porphyrion. So that's the nice little kind of fifth weapon that it has, and it's a decent weapon too. Looking down again at the head of the Asterius, I've white tacked this. The head is quite a nice head. You know, I think it's way better than the, is it Megaera or Styx? Either one of those. Yeah, it's got just the right amount of kind of skull and mechanicum. Very classic of that, the symbol of the Omnissiah as well, with the skull. It's a nice looking head. The carapace itself is great. I like the layered armoured plates as well. So that just will eventually glue on there. For now, it's just going to rest on there. So there you go, and that's just like an overview. In terms of difficulty for build, I'd probably say, I was having this discussion a little while ago, it probably is the hardest knight to put together compared to all of them. I think it's harder than the Porphyrion. The legs are kind of the same as the Porphyrion, and I think the sort of body is, but everything else, the armor plates, the shoulder pauldrons, the big weapons, that's all different. The body is different than the Porphyrion. I think it is a bit wider, and where the weapons sort of go and operate is different, and how they connect. So yeah, this is the most difficult sort of knight that you can get before you get into Warhound Titans and things, and I think that this still has more parts, and the Porphyrion, than a Warhound Titan, because if you think about it, the Warhound Titans weapons, like the Vulcan Megabolter, is just one piece, whereas one of these heavy conversion beamers, you've got these two are pieces, these are pieces, you've got the 8 cowling, you've got more pieces at the back, the cabling, there's like 4 different cables. Like there's a lot of pieces in this compared to the you know, even the Titans and things. Posability as well, that can be a bit tricky, getting all of the knees and the hips and things to line up, but I think I've done a good job. My first experience was the Porphyrion that I built, and that of the Acastus Knight series, and that is probably the worst pose. I'm going to have a much better pose for the second Porphyrion once the first one is fully painted. So yeah, that's a little look around the model. There are no spare parts. You don't get any extras or different weapon options and things. What you see is what you get for your £400. Yeah, it is expensive. Back in the day, you could get a Warhammer Titan for £250, which is taller, much more imposing, and probably more useful. And if Warhammer Titans was still 250 and this was, say, 350 or even 400, I'd definitely get the Warhammer Titan over this. In terms of now, again, it depends on which model you like the most, if you can only get one. But I think most people would go for a Warhammer Titan because it is a Titan, and I guess it could do more damage. It's a bit more useful and imposing and more of a centerpiece. This is a very unique miniature for a specific faction, or just for knights. Okay, so size comparisons then. Let's start off small, and we'll go with a Contemptor Dreadnought right here. So Contemptor Dreadnought doesn't even go up to the knee on this model. So yeah, if you're going up against Space Marines and things, you're going to be you know, quite high up there on that knight. Then Moirax, which is the smallest knight right here. A Moirax does go past the knee, but doesn't go to the hips. This is, I guess, a Asterius homage because this one does have 2 conversion beamers. Quite an expensive choice because you can't buy it with the conversion beamers, you have to buy them separately. I think they're like 15 quid each. So yes, that means that this Moirax cost me about 70 or 80 quid. Yeah, quite pricey. But yeah, that's where it stands next to one of those. Compared to a Questoris Knight, I have a Knight Paladin here. I think it's a Paladin. Things are getting a bit crowded now. So yeah, that's where it stands next to a Knight Paladin. Paladin probably goes, the top of the carapace goes to head height, I'd say. Then compared to a Cerastus Knight, in this case I'm using the Atrapos. Now they are a similar height. I'd say the Acastus is still taller and would definitely be taller if I didn't have the walking forward sort of hunched pose, and the Atrapos is in quite an upright pose there. So yeah, that's that one. That's where it stands up next to a Cerastus Knight. I guess I could compare it to a plastic Cerastus Knight, which they are the same height. This one is very similar height. So yeah, if you've got plastic Cerastus Knights, this Acastus Knight, both this and the Porphyrion, are going to be similar height, just a little bit taller because of the sort of high arc of that carapace there. Then we get into the Titan comparisons, and here you see it next to the smallest Titan, a Lucius Pattern Warhound Titan. The Warhound Titans are a fair bit bigger than the Acastus, but these Acastus are still you know, pretty big, pretty heavy, and consist of more parts. Then if we take a step back, we can see the size of the Acastus Knight next to a proper battle Titan, a Reaver Titan. The Acastus is, I'd say, almost up to its hips, kind of up to its hips at its tallest point, but its head height is just past knee height of the Reaver. So that gives you an example of just how big these Reaver Titans are. The Nemesis Warbringer is a bit bigger than that, and then of course the Warlord is way bigger. And then the final size comparisons I always like to make is just with the 3 usual minis. I'm going to do this while the Reaver's in the background to give you an idea. So you've got the Space Marine, you've got a Primaris, and you've got sort of an Imperial model, Sly Marbo. So there you go. A Primaris barely comes up to the arch of one of the shin armor plates, and of course, you know, they are 8.5 feet tall. So yeah, no way near knee height, let alone hip height, head height. You know, this Acastus Knight is pretty big. You know, you have 3 of these, or you have 3 Acastus Knights, and yeah, they're gonna be big blobs next to, you know, even your Warhound Titans. Okay, so this is my part of the review where I will go through all of the rules for the Questoris Acastus Knight Asterius. Now, it's one of these models whereby you can only have 0 to 1 of them, a bit like the Knight Atrapos, in your Questoris household force. I'm guessing you can have as many as you like in a normal Mechanicum force, because there is not the 0 to 1. Same goes for the Atrapos. But one of these Acastus Knights will cost you 625 points. Its stat line reads: it's a movement of 12 inches, weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 10, front armor is 14, side is 13, and rear is 12. Initiative is only 3. It only has 3 attacks, but it does have 9 hull points. Now you're thinking, oh, super, you know, 9 hull points, that's only really, you know, 2 more hull points than the Styrics, or only 1 more hull point than the Atrapos. Well, yes, but its armor is far better. You know, it's got the front armor of 14 and the side of 13. So really still only a little bit vulnerable from the rear. Its war gear, it has 2 arm-mounted twin-linked heavy conversion beam cannons, and it has a hull-mounted Karachnos mortar battery and 2 hull-mounted Volkite culverins, and it also has an iron shield. Its special rules: it has catastrophic explosion, it will not die 6+, and night vision. So it doesn't really have any like specific special rules for it, which is a bit of a shame. I would have liked some macro extinction target. Now, I would have liked something where it can fire both of the conversion beamers as one, or I don't know, just something extra. But as it stands, its main weapon is those heavy conversion beam cannons. Now, they are pretty juicy. So because they're a beam cannon, the strength of them is better at a greater range. I would have liked to have seen their range be further, considering the size of these things compared to normal beamer weapons, but whatever. So if the beam cannon, if the target is up to 18 inches away, their strength is only 7, AP nothing, is a heavy 1, large blast, 5-inch blind. If it's between 18 inches and 42 inches, their strength is 9, AP is 4, heavy 1, large blast, 5-inch blind. But then, if their range is between 42 inches and 72 inches, their strength bumps up to 12, AP 1, large 1, heavy 1, large blast, 5-inch blind. So how that compares to just a normal little Moirax's conversion beam cannon is same range, same strength and armor penetration, but the only difference you're getting is the size of the blast. That's the only difference, which I think is wrong. I think, yeah, it's nice to have a blast 5-inch compared to the 3-inch. I think the strength should be a bit different, or even the range for these things compared to the Moirax weapons, because you're essentially getting the same weapons on a Moirax, but just with an extra 2-inch blast. So yeah, they need to change the rules slightly for these heavy conversion beam cannons, because they're just not that scary. You know, strength 12 AP1 sounds scary, 5-inch blast, and they are twin linked, but I think they could be scarier. The other weapon, the Karachnos mortar battery, that counts as a missile weapon. It's a 60-inch range, so similar range to the heavy conversion beam cannons. It's a strength 6, AP 4, it's heavy 1, but it is a massive blast of 7 inches. It's barrage, fleshbane, radphage, ignores cover, pinning, shell shock 3, and crawling fire. That is incredible, absolutely incredible. So we'll go through some of the rules for the mortar battery. Now, it is worth noting that the Acastus does have an iron shield, like all the other knights, so that means it's going to get a 4+ invulnerable save against shooting attacks against the front, and then 5+ invulnerable against shooting attacks from the side. Doesn't get an invulnerable save in melee though. First of all, I'll just talk about blind, which is for the heavy conversion beam cannon. Any unit hit by one or more models or weapons with this special rule must take an initiative test at the end of the current phase. If the test is passed, no further effect. If it's failed, then all models are reduced to weapon skill 1 and ballistic skill 1 until the end of their next turn. That's pretty cool. In terms of the Acastus mortar battery, it has the barrage special rule, which means that it can fire indirectly, so they can fire at targets they do not have line of sight to, as long as the target is beyond their minimum range, well, if applicable. When firing indirectly, the ballistic skill of the fire is not subtracted from the scatter distance unless a hit is rolled on the scattered dice. So unless a hit is rolled on the scattered dice, the blast marker always scatters a full 2d6. So that's how barrage works. Fleshbane, it always wounds on a 2+, but doesn't have any effect on vehicles or buildings. So yeah, strength 6 seems weak. Well, normally you'd wound on a 2+ anyway with a strength 6, but still, because it's got Fleshbane, it's a 2+. Radphage, a model which loses 1 or more wounds to an attack with this special rule and survives, has its toughness value reduced by -1 for the rest of the battle. It's not cumulative. So that's pretty good, you know. Anything that loses 1 wound, yep, you're down to, like, well, Space Marine equivalent, down to toughness 3. Ignores cover is quite self-explanatory. Cover saves cannot be taken. Pinning must take a leadership test if it suffers 1 or more unsaved wound. Shell shock. Pinning tests due to an attack or weapon with this special rule are made with a penalty to leadership characteristic equal to the value listed as part of the special rule. And in this case, it's Shell Shock 3. So yeah, your Space Marines are going for, what, if their leadership's 7, I think they are. They're going to be going down to 4 when they take the Shell Shock tests. And then Crawling Fire. After the blast marker for a weapon with this special rule is placed, the attacking unit's controlling player may move the marker up to 2 inches in any direction, so long as this would cover more models than it previously would have. So you can just move that blast marker around. And that's it. So yeah, that Acastus mortar battery has, I mean, technically the massive blast isn't really a special rule, it's just a blast marker, but it's got 7 separate rules just for that. And on top of those 2 horrific weapons, it also has a pair of 2 Volkite Culverins, which you should be familiar by now. They are a nice 45-inch range, strength 6, AP 5, heavy 5, deflag rate. And of course, deflag rate after normal attacks by the weapon has been resolved. Count the number of unsaved wounds, immediate resolve a number of additional automatic hits on the same unit using the weapon's profile, equal to the number of unsaved wounds, and then they can be saved normally. So you've got a chance there of causing even more wounds with it, but because it's AP 5, most of the time you are going to get your saves and you are going to be passing them, but that's still, you know, 10 extra strength 6 shots from 45-inch range, you know, along with that 7-inch blast marker, along with 2 5-inch strength 12 blast markers for the heavy conversion beam cannons. This thing is a bit of a monster at range. How to deal with this thing? Wow. Well, I know this sounds odd, considering it hasn't really got any flamers and things, but my best advice is to annihilate it from even further range. So we're talking 80 inches or more, because it can move 12 inches and still fire everything. So either take it out using a volcano cannon, or a big apocalyptic missile launcher or something like that, or if you've got knights going up against it, you really want to be flanking speed and assaulting it as quickly as possible. You know, flanking speed is an extra 4 inches, I think, so your knights are normally being able to, your Cerastus knights are normally being able to move 14 inches, so that's a good 18-inch distance per turn, which if this thing is 72 inches away, it's going to take 4 turns for you to get there. But once you're in combat with it, you know, it has a slow initiative, it has doesn't have many attacks, doesn't have an invulnerable save in combat. And remember, it's only got 9 hull points. So if you can get something in close to pummel it, just on its armor value, preferably not the front armor of 14, then you can really go to town on it. But it's pretty survivable with the high armor, with the invulnerable saves, with the it will not die rule, and on top of that it's got the catastrophic explosion. So quite a tricky knight to take down, either from very long range or destroy it in melee as quick as you possibly can, because the damage potential for this thing is enormous. Is it a Titan killer? Depends on the Titan. It could definitely do some damage with those strength 12 weapons. But if you're going up against a Titan with it, you know, a Titan would be better armed and armoured with the Void Shields, as well as having better weaponry to take it down. This thing is going to absolutely murder vehicles, other knights, heavy infantry, even horde armies as well. Like, this thing will just eat up like the Solar Auxilia or other Mechanicum. What do you guys think of this Acastus Knight Asterius? Please do put your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. It'd be good to hear from you. Thank you for watching. The Emperor protects.